Hey everyone, welcome to the October Database Security Office Hours on the Ask Tom platform. My name is Richard Evans, and I'm your host and product manager of Database Vault, and recently took over data redaction as well. So I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Angeline, Angeline is the PM for SQL Firewall, as well as Unified Auditing, which we're excited to talk about today. This call is being recorded. It will be available on Ask Tom a week or so from now. I'll try to get it up there for you. 5 years or so worth of recordings out there on this platform. If there's any topics you'd be interested in us talking about, feel free to send me an email or talk to us in this chat or the Q&A here about it, because we're always trying to come up with things that would be relevant to you. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. This is our second Wednesday presentation for our Database Security Office Hours. Every month, we talk about what's new in the world of Oracle Database Security with some announcements, any upcoming events we might have. We have a technical topic. Today, we're talking about Unified Auditing, and then you can ask some Q&A. We'll try to take those as we go if you've got a lot of them. If not, we'll hold them at the end and answer them live, okay? So welcome. Thanks for joining us. Get started with some announcements. I always try to put the links and things we talk about in this GitHub page. And I just realized that you guys can't copy that link, or you can't even click on it because I forgot to include the HTTPS in front of it. So my apologies. I'll do it again. Zoom security, I guess, just doesn't allow us to let you copy it, but hopefully you can click on those links, open up the GitHub page. You've got a couple years worth of presentations, notes out there for you to utilize as you go along, or if you want to go back and watch old videos, okay? Quarterly patching is around the corner here. We're talking about next week, hopefully, on or around October 15th. Please always stay up to date on those patches as much as you can. For information on patches, check out oracle.com/security-alerts. If you're using real application clusters, rack, check out fleet patching and provisioning. Hopefully that'll make your patching life a little bit easier. And then always look at Mike Dietrich's blog, mikedietrichde.com. It was fun. I got to say hi to Mike at Cloud World this year. I did not get to go to his presentations, but you know, they're all full anyway, and it's more important that you guys go than I go. But I know he had some good ones. DataSafe updates for August. We've got active data guard support for XSEC and on-premise databases. So it allows you to register those standby databases. DataSafe will continue to work even with switchover and failover. So active data guard support is now available on pretty much all of the environments: Oracle-based database, Exadata, dedicated infrastructure, Exadata Cloud at Customer, and then on-prem databases as well. So great advancements with Oracle DataSafe, our cloud-based offering that really gets new capabilities and updates every month or every couple weeks. So Angeline, you've got a new capability in DataSafe as well that came out in September with SQL Firewall.
Yes, and for those of you who are really interested, you're waiting for the SQL Firewall to come in 23ai, this cool new enhancement that we have introduced in the cloud service gives you the right capability that you're looking for. Because, you know, once you train the SQL Firewall to learn what's allowed, you will always have a way where you have patch the application or patch the database, and there's going to creep in a new statement that's coming or a new connection point, and you would always want to add that. So what we give you is a flexibility to add it from the violation log, add it from the capture log. So there you go. You can always keep up to date with the allowed list, whatever you want. And try out this new capability. It's already there in your tenancies. You can try it out from the Livelabs also, if you would.
Cool.
Yep, thanks.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Angeline. Good stuff. DataSafe also has some pre-masking check enhancements too. I know we released some of this back in May, and it looks like we've added some new checks there for you as well. Column length, database vault, and a few other things there. On the GitHub repository, and I'll paste this again if you came in a couple minutes late, On that GitHub repository, there is a link to the DataSafe documentation and some of the changes that have occurred with DataSafe in recent months. So good idea to keep an eye on that document. And then we'll try to announce them here every month as well. So always improving, always a cool solution to utilize if you're on Oracle Cloud with virtually any Oracle database. You can use Oracle DataSafe. Okay. Oracle Key Vault can now manage keys for autonomous database dedicated. So this came out in September while we were at Cloud World. So rewind a little bit, about 4 years ago, autonomous Cloud at Customer was supported by Oracle Key Vault. And then in 2023, Exadata Cloud at Customer was supported with Oracle Key Vault. So managing that master key, that wallet file. And then later in 2023, Exa database dedicated at GCP, dedicated at Azure. And then exciting to see Peter Wall and team continue to innovate with Key Vault and add additional support there. So autonomous database dedicated support with Key Vault in just last month. So good stuff. If you want to get your hands on virtually anything we do with Oracle Database Security, you can go over to our Livelabs platform. We've got 40 plus labs out there, more than half of them you can do on our dime. Get your hands on SQL Firewall, like Angeline was saying. Get your hands on Database Vault or Data Redaction or TDE or Key Vault or Audit Vault or DataSafe. I mean, you name it, we've probably got a lab out there. If we don't, let us know and say, hey, we're looking for, a lab on these things. Is there something you can put together there for us? Or is there a tutorial that you can share with us? So we always want you to have the skills to implement these technologies and tools within your environment. Okay. So speaking of kind of learning about technology and everything going on, Oracle Cloud World was a big success. I really enjoyed it. Angeline and I got to spend some time together. I helped with one of her labs, which was really well attended. We worked the booth together, so we had a lot of customers come by and say, "Hey, what's new in Oracle Database Security for 23ai?" We could point them at the August maximum security architecture video we did on the Ask Tom series. So good to keep an eye and look at that one. But it was really great to interact with our peers and colleagues, as well as the customers, vendors, partners. I thought there was a lot of positive energy around this event. So I appreciate you guys coming out, who came out and said hi. If you didn't, please try to join us next year. It'll be in October, so keep an eye on that. Angeline, we'll get over to you now, ma'am.
Okay, so thank you, Rich. So welcome again. Like today's session, the topic of the series is like streamlining your transition to unified auditing. I don't think unified auditing is a term which is new for anyone. Especially I saw the list of people and like, oh man, I know almost everyone there. So you've had hands-on working on the database auditing. Database auditing is something you cannot leave it as an optional thing now. Like if you don't have your corporate requirement, your regulatory requirement will mandate you to have some kind of database auditing in your database systems. And talking about Oracle journey, right? So you would have heard this news that the legacy auditing that we carried over for years, that's something we are desupporting, and we want to encourage everyone to move to unified audit. So this particular session, I'm going to talk about why did we choose that path in the first place? Why did we, what has been there for decades? Why did we say no? Because we want to give you the best. So I would like to take you through that scenarios on why unified audit. And then we don't want to leave you right there if you're using the legacy auditing. We want to give you the best, the seamless experience to transition to what is the industry's best. And that's the session agenda. So if you look at the journey of auditing, it's database auditing in Oracle has been there for decades. Like we started with traditional audit in 1992, years before probably even I started my job at Oracle. And then we introduced fine-grained auditing. Fine-grained auditing gave you the capability to audit specific rows based on values. Of course, traditional audit, you had the way to audit specific statements, your objects and privileges that you use. And with 12C-R1, we introduced something called as Unified Audit. And since 12C, it has always been there in your database. So if you are in 18C, if you're in 19C, if you're in 21C, I'm not sure like how many of you are in 21C. So all through, you will always find Unified Audit if you're 12C or 12.2 and above. It's something called mixed mode. So we always had the flavor of traditional and unified in your database. We gave you the knob to turn off traditional with relinking the binaries, hoping that once you get familiar with Unified Audit, you will eventually switch over to it. And that's what we started announcing the deprecation of traditional audit in 19C, 21C, and with 23AI, we are desupporting the legacy audit. But we understand that many of you are still using the legacy audit systems, so we continue to honor what is existent. I'll come into the details of what to expect when you upgrade or when you do a fresh install of 23AI and why it's important to give a thought to how soon you can start transitioning to Unified Audit. Now, our recommendation is if you are in Oracle Database 12.2 and above, you can use Unified Audit because it's already enabled in mixed mode. You have both the traditional and the Unified Auditing available. So you can choose to use a Unified Audit and you can optionally turn off the traditional audit if it's required. Now, why Unified Audit, right? So Unified Audit, we have certain core themes, which you will appreciate the fact that, we have made it so simple. You can manage with ease. You can manage it as a first-class citizens of database. You can configure granular policies, which are so accurate and which just caters to what you need to audit. And of course, it's much more performance. So let's look at some of these crucial ones. I'm just going to list some of them because otherwise it will consume the entire 1 hour, which I don't think Rich will give me beyond that. So starting with simplification, right? We want you to begin effortless. And from that perspective, what we want you to take notice, database in its native form has certain activities which are always audited. You cannot turn them off. So it is there, which are very critical, even that we understand it needs to be audited. Those are always audited. You don't have a way to disable them. Certain things like all activities until the database opens or any attempts to modify the audit trail data or the configuration data. The list is dependent on the particular version. So take a look at the QR code if you would like, or what are the latest ones on the 23AI. You can refer back to the 19C or 12 documentation to see what are the mandatory audits which are always on in the database, irrespective of which flavor you use, whether it is XR, whether it is autonomous, whether it's your on-prem, it doesn't matter. It comes in the native form of Oracle database. These things are always audited. So that's the privilege. So when you start with planning to audit, certain things are always audited. Oracle has taken care for that for you. Now, how do you identify those things? If you look at the unified audit policies in the trail, you will see ORA $mandatory to signify those events that we track as always on. And you can also trace the administrative privilege that is being used for those activities. Now, that was mandatory audit. Coming to the default audit, if you're using the autonomous, we have so many defaults that is coming from the autonomous flavor, whether it is serverless or dedicated. Now, those again cannot be disabled. Those exist by default. Some activities, like all activities by cloud operations, login failures, password changes, and so on. And beyond just the audit policies, we also give automated audit trail purge management. For example, if you have noticed in serverless, all audit records older than 14 days are purged. Dedicated, all audit records older than 90 days are purged. So we give you beyond just the policy management, the entire life cycle management, so to speak, in the autonomous. Now, coming to the predefined policy. So apart from the mandatory audit, the defaults that exist in the cloud, there are also predefined audit policies like the cookie cutter policies. All you need to do is just single click provision them. If you're using any of our DAM solution, it's just a single click. On the Oracle database, you have to just do audit that particular policy name, just a single command. And to your benefit, like, many of these are enabled by default. For example, in your 19C, you will see Aura secure config and login failures. The login failure new name is login logout in 23AI. So this will be enabled by default if it is a DBCA created once. And if you would like to enable other things like your account management, or if you would like to comply with CIS recommendations, you can just turn them on. And 23AI has a couple of more default enabled ones. You can take a look at the documentation for details. Now, this gives you the capability to start auditing with ease. So you don't have to think about what policies, how should I create them, enable them. It's all available to you for your use. And the third aspect is, even if you have to enable them on specific conditions or certain users, we give you that flexibility. So you have a way to say, I want to audit only when my connections comes from the non-trusted IP. You can very well use that from the sys context user env variable. Or if you want to audit only the data pump operations, yes, we give you that component auditing capability as well. Or you want to audit only for the users who are forming in a role, right? So you can use all the DBAs who are granted that DBA role, whoever is there. So even if they come and go tomorrow, anyone who is granted the DBA role will continue to be audited. Or exception-based auditing, audit everything except probably my application service account. So that way also you can configure. So this gives you a wide variety of flexible options to make your granularity to help you audit with precision. And also there's a cool command top level, which enables you to audit just the user-initiated operations. You might not want to go beyond the user-initiated operations to the recursive ones, but just stick to the user-initiated. So that's also an option that's provided. And also what the hidden gem is, audit trail is extensible. Of course, we give around 120 plus columns, and there are so many things coming from client session, from your database objects, so many of them, which is there already in your unified audit trail. But if you want to extend it to include your own attributes, right? Maybe, for instance, your application attributes, transaction ID or something, right? So there is way where you can extend the audit trail to include those information using the named application context. You create a name value pair and then you do the audit. So any of the audit events that gets captured, it goes into the application context. And if you're using data save or AVDF, we do surface this field in all the reports. So you have every capability to extend and see what you need in those reports. And of course, the very good thing about Unified Audit is it's much lower performance overhead. Like the internal TPCC, whatever we have clocked is for 6,000 audit records per minute, it's mid-single digit. And even if you were to go up to 30K audit records per minute, it is still single digit. But remember that auditing is part of the transaction. So if you were to audit everything that comes in, every application service account activity, you might have some performance overhead. So that's why we ask you to fine-tune those audit policies, especially if you're going beyond the most common auditing use case, like auditing privileged users or security relevant events or sensitive data access. Beyond that, make sure that you have the correct audit configurations so that it doesn't overwhelm the system. And for most of the non-application, whether you're auditing privileged users or security relevant, the performance impact is just negligible. Let me go to what we have in the path forward, right? In 23AI, we are desupporting traditional audit. Now, what that means is in your fresh database 23AI installed, you will only see unified audit. There is no traditional audit. You cannot create new traditional audit. There is no two binaries, uniod on and off. There will be only one single one, and it's a no op if you do a uniod on off. And you always have this mandatory audit. There are predefined audit policies which are enabled by default. And if you do a traditional audit settings, you would be greeted by this 46401 ORA error, which says no new traditional audit is allowed. It's desupported, and you should use unified auditing in place. Now, there is no default audit settings also, the traditional audit settings. So audit sys operation is false, audit trail is none. And even if you try to set these deprecated values and start your DB, you would be greeted by this error in your alert logs. Now, that was for the fresh install. What about the upgrade instance? So if you are using any of the upgrade paths, we do continue to honor traditional audit settings if it exists prior to the upgrade. So all of them will continue to generate audit records into the traditional audit trails, because we understand that we need to give you that flexibility so that you can transition. Once you're in 23AI, you can transition to the unified audit post that also. We don't want to disrupt your auditing path with the upgrade. But of course, you cannot create new ones. You cannot update existing ones. You can only delete the existing ones. Now, once you transition to unified audit, we encourage you to do a no audit of traditional audit settings, set the audit trail none, and audit sys operations to false. And I'll go in a bit into detail of this. And if there are fine-grained audit policies for some reasons, like, there might be use cases where you're still using fine-grained auditing, it continues to generate audit records into the unified audit trail. In the mixed mode, it goes to the FGA log dollar table, but in the 23AI upgraded instance, it comes to the unified audit. Oracle strongly recommends that you transition to from traditional to unified audit as soon as possible. Don't wait for the 23AI upgrade to happen. If you are in version 12.2 and above, you can seamlessly upgrade. Now, when you do the upgrade, most probably you would be using the auto upgrade path. If you do the auto upgrade path with pre-checks with analyze, if it detects the presence of traditional audit settings in these tables, the statement or the privilege audit or the object audit, and if audit trail is not none value, you will get this warning in your pre-upgrade checks, which will indicate that there is a traditional audit settings and you have action items to perform before you upgrade. But it's a warning, it's not an error, so you can continue with the upgrade and transition later too. Now, let me just show you how it looks like when you run it in the analyze mode with the auto upgrade jar. Mike is always so, he's so particular about picking the auto upgrade jar from the latest MOS node. So make sure you pick it up from the latest MOS node, run it on your source Oracle home. And when you do that and analyze, let me show you how it looks like. So you will get the checks report in this format. And when you drill down, it will give you for each of the container, whether it's CDB root or any of the PDBs. Now let's pick up one of the PDBs. And if you happen to see UniOdd on, you will see this pre-check warning. So this is how you will get to know that there are traditional audit settings while you perform that upgrade. Okay. Hey, by the way, I forgot, like if you have questions, we have the expert answering, we have Rich answering, so please feel free to use the Q&A panel or wait till the end that then we can take it live as well. Okay, so now that we have know what the behavior of unified audit and traditional audit is in 23 AI, what is the transition plan looking like? So our recommendation is you can plan to transition now if you're using 12.2 and above and not wait until 23 AI, but we give you the path to transition later as well. So what does it look like if you're doing it now? So we have made it so simple. It's not a project activity that will take months or even days. It's just a few hours or maybe a few minutes job to get this transition in the right way, right? So first thing is don't duplicate mandatory always on audits. So see in your instance, in your version, what the mandatory or always on audits are. And if it exists, use that, like don't create duplicates of what it is there. And leverage the predefined policies, secure config, login, logout, are enabled in most database. If it is upgraded from 11G, you might not see it. So enable it, enable the account management, enable the database vault audit policies, enable Aura all top level action for all the administrative users, including SIS. So with this, we give you the parity of what you had as default traditional audit settings in your database. So with 2BCD, so 3 steps, you are at par with what we offered you in the traditional audit. Now, as an optional step, you can disable the default traditional audit settings. So there are quite a lot of default traditional audit settings. You can choose to use a script that we provide in the Moss node, the syntax converter. I'll talk about it in a minute. You can use that script, or you can have your own job to do no audit of all the traditional audit settings. If it's a fresh install of 12.2 and above, you would see around close to 214 object audit settings protecting DVSys, LBASs, and DVF schemas. If you have upgraded all the way from 11G, you would see in addition 52 statements and privileged audit settings, which are there as default. So you can choose to do this no audit of all these things with any of the approach and set the audit trail none and audit sys operations to false. And then you're all set to go. You can begin your journey with unified audit. On top of it, if you would like to provision additional policies, you have it at the database, you have it at the data safe or the AVDF if you're using. It's a single click provisioning in from all these DAM solution tools. So leverage them and you can enable them of specific users and with conditions and get started. You would use to create custom unified audit policies only when there are some environment factors that you need to consider. For example, when conditions or sensitive data access, where the knowledge of sensitive data resides in your environment, and we need that input to create the audit policies. So apart from that, most of the things are taken care of by the predefined policies. And if you want to go beyond the baseline to get a holistic auditing in picture, we have recommendations. We have a technical report where we have given you different ways how you can configure a holistic auditing approach by monitoring privileged user activities, security relevant and sensitive data access auditing. So beyond the baseline, if you want to configure it, take a look at it. And maybe in another follow-up session, I'll be glad to walk you through all these recommendations. Okay, now the query you might have is, I have customized traditional audit settings apart from what the Oracle provides, and I'm not at all familiar with the unified audit syntax. What do? We don't leave you out there. You have something called a syntax converter. That's there as scripts in this Moss node. It's a bunch of scripts. When you configure and run, it will give you syntax equivalent of traditional audit settings. Now, the best is I show you that in a demo so that you will tell me that it's all true. We do provide that. I hope you can see the demo.
We can.
Oh, thanks, Rich. Okay, so when you download that script, it would be 3 scripts that we provide you. So audit, convert, revoke, grant, SQL. So the audit convert is the main one. And this is all to create a user, grant the relevant privileges so that the user can run the audit convert. So if you see, I have created a user, granted the relevant privileges, and I'm running that against a particular directory, which what it does, it goes into the database, fetches all the traditional audit settings, and then it puts that into a couple of files. Let me stop here. Okay, so there you have create policy, you have the enable policy, disable policy, drop policy. Create policy is the file which gives you the syntax equivalent of traditional audit settings. We have a placeholder where you can enable the policies, you can disable or drop them. Now, you might be curious, why did we give so many files? Why not run everything, create, enable in a first shot, right? Now, create policy is just the syntax equivalent. If I can show you, yes. So you would see something like this, equivalent of your traditional audit settings in the unified audit syntax. But what it doesn't offer you is if you would like to enrich, for example, top level, or if you like to enrich with when conditions, we don't know what those factors are, right? So we encourage you to look at this file. And if you would like to introduce some of these enriching factors of unified audit, we highly recommend that you take a look and introduce them in the create file, and then you run the script. So once you run the script, then you can enable the policies. Enable, this script is just enabling audit policies. So again, here you can introduce that for users, or you can use those conditions to enable it for all users except one, or all the users belonging to a particular role. So that's why we give you the flexibility in different scripts so that you have a way to edit them. Now, once you're comfortable with it, let me show you. Okay, so this is a scenario where there are a couple of traditional audit settings in the database. And I'm just running this fast because you might not. Okay, so this is a summary script. And in the create audit policy, so once I run the script, enable them, you would see everything gets created in the unified audit policies. So one thing to notice, if you're unfamiliar with unified audit syntax, you can leverage this tool. But if you're familiar with it, I don't recommend that you use this tool because you are better creating them with your hand. You can leverage the predefined ones. You can create your own good ones. So I highly recommend that you use this tool only if you're a novice, you're a beginner with Unified Audit, you don't know anything about it. Okay, so let me go on. So that was the plan, the transition plan, while it is in 12C and above, not waiting for upgrading to 23AI. But the second option is you can still choose to wait till 23AI, transition post that. So how does it look like? So familiar, this is the same steps, but only thing is the third step where you disable the default traditional audit settings. It was not mandatory if you happen to run it in 12.2 and above, but it becomes a mandatory step if you run it in 23AI. And the reason is we don't want to evaluate both the traditional audit settings and unified audit settings. It comes with a performance cost. So we mandate you to disable the default traditional audit settings once you have all the unified audit policies in place. The steps remain the same. You have no audit and setting the audit trail none and audit sys operations false. Now, apart from in the database planning, right, you would also want to ensure your monitoring solution has continuity. For instance, like if you're using data save or Oracle Audit Vault and Database Firewall, you would have configured sys.odd$ trail collection, right? Okay, why does this pop up? Okay, so you would have configured those sys.odd$ trail collection or from the FGA log trail collections. And these monitoring solutions would give you those nice reports, or you would have further integrated with your SIM solution. Now, with this transition, we encourage you to make sure you start the unified audit trail collection in your monitoring solutions, either in data save or in audit vault database firewall, or whichever monitoring solutions. If you use a third party or if you use a SIM connection, make sure that you start collecting from unified audit trail. The sys.odd$, once it stops getting the input, the trails in these solutions will go to idle state. You can choose to ignore it, or you can delete it once it goes to the idle state. We also give you from these monitoring solutions a way to see how my audit volume looks like. What are the audit policies that is generating a huge volume? Which is my target that is, kind of impacted with a lot of audit noise, or which objects, which schema. So you can slice and dice and see like what constitutes that volume, correct? So we give you that kind of audit insights both in data safe and AVDF, so that you can further fine tune those audit volumes to see what you require. And if you're not using any of either the data safe or audit vault database firewall, we give you that capability in form of a script, which is available in the MOS node. And that gives you a lot of details, more details than what you see in the UI through data safe or AVDF, which gives you by user, by action. So we give you all that information, even the management, the purge management, the purge schedule, everything is built into the script output, where you can see and take action if some policy needs fine tuning, or some of your DBMS scheduler job needs fine tuning. You can take actionable items looking at those output. So that was about transition and what you need to plan for, right? Now, some of the tips to improve the efficiency of unified audit. Ensure that a dedicated table space for unified auditing is available. Make sure it is ASSM enabled. And the DBMS audit management package interface has a way to set the audit trail location online. You don't have to bounce the DB for it. It sets it automatically and moves it when the high water level mark is reached. And there are queries where you can confirm that the transition has happened. The second thing that you have to take note of is a partition interval. Now, partition interval is subjective. So if you are in a situation where there are like huge amount of audit volume that comes in on a daily basis, you might want to set the partition interval more aggressively to 1 day. By default, like in 21 earlier versions, below 21C, we had it as 1 month. So in 19C, you will see it as 1 month by default. We encourage you to change it based on the volume of audit records. But in 21 and later, 23AI, it is already set to 1 day. So, and of course, the audit management package interface has a way where you can alter the partition interval. Now, why do we encourage? Because drop partitions are much faster than delete. So your entire purge management becomes much more simpler and with no performance overhead. Now, the other thing is like, it is important to schedule the purge of unified audit trail at source. If you're using AVDF or data save, it helps manage because these solutions set the last archive timestamp when the audit record is collected. And in the database, all you need to schedule is a job which looks at the last archive timestamp and deletes everything before that, right? Of course, data safe gives you the auto purge capability also if you turn it on. If you're not using either solutions, make sure a job is set in the database, which where once you set that LAT by some other solutions or by manually, the clean audit trail will pick it up and it will delete all the older audit records. There are Livelabs. As Rich mentioned, there are like Livelabs for every database security feature and solution. Unified Audit also has a playground where you can try those solutions firsthand. And this is the Livelabs. Make note that we are currently upgrading and an enhanced version will be available soon. So which will give you a quick intro into the Unified Audit and you can become expert in probably 30-40 minutes. So like stay tuned for this. And of course, you can play with it now to see, if you are new to Unified Audit and you would love to get started, you can use this Live Lab.